very much for hosting this and allowing me to present this presentation. So, yeah, my name is Andrew Just. I work at the Central Region headquarters, and we've got some acknowledgments here to Chuck Greif and Jerry Wiedenfeld, who are co-leads to our Central Region Grid Methodology Advisory Team. I presented this at AMS here back in January, and I thought this would be a good topic because especially for a lot of the newer forecasters out there to kind of see how we've got to where we've been in GFE, the greater world in general. So I'm just going to get right to it, and rather being in present mode, I'm just going to go like it is here, because this looks like a little better display. And so the grid methodology team, we were charted in August 2008. In fact, there was this all kind of bore out of there was a new ideas advisory board that was evaluating evaluating proposals and all that, and this came out of that board. And we were chartered to promote this cohesive approach to grid editing, to look at why we're having so many issues with consistency and how to improve things like accuracy and time for doing grid forecasts. And the way the team was chartered was a joint team between management and NWSCO, and it still remains that way to this day. We're a mix of forecasters, SUs, ITOs on there, with a good chunk of union members as well. And within the roadmap that we all read in that here in Central Region, we are the forecast evolution component to that. So look at all the variety of projects that this team has completed over the past decade. It's quite a lot. Lots of surveys, lots of tests, lots of improvements, and rinse and repeat, if you will. And with lots of new ideas coming through, monthly, you think practically. So again, we started in 2008, formed a variety of sub teams to help with the recommendations that we produced out of our initial formation. Came up with day 4 through 7 policy, STF, and I'll go through all of these during the course of the presentation. So the first thing that we did, we needed to kind of, what is the state of gridded operations in Central Regions? We're back to 2008, 2009. We looked at smart tools, looked at procedures. We had some stuff running in the background to look at how often is the pencil tool being utilized, how often are various tools being utilized. It got all these stats and collected all that to figure out, what are we going to do here moving forward in terms of some recommendations. And so, in fact, a lot of the projects that have kind of come out of the grid team are a result of this report that was, again, over a decade ago. To implement some of these recommendations, as I mentioned, we formed a couple of sub-teams, the Smart Tool Task Force, to kind of come up with a collective of recommended tools and procedures that would be needed to support some of our, again, varieties of recommendations, and then a verification task force to make sure that if we are implementing anything, to know that, hey, is this a more accurate approach to do that? And we utilize the Boise Verify program, and as you see for a lot of your own intranet websites, this verification continues to this day. So that's been around for a very long time. One of our biggest accomplishments coming out of the grid team in the whole decade was this day 4 through 7 policy. But even before we could get there, one of the most important things we had to know about is what is coming into GFE look the same from office to office, and so that Smart Tool Task Force, one of the things that they worked through was to create these standard model decoders, and we did that for everybody. That had to go through iterations of improvements, because we initially had some problems out in the western and the mountain offices, and so it kind of improved those. It's interesting to note that these SmartNets that were developed, these decoders, were the precursor to the National SmartNet team that was founded in 2013, and that continues to this day. once we had those smartness in place, then we could consider making this day 4 through 7 policy utilizing this blended models approach, which is going this idea of, from a long-term verification that we should stick with a blend. And we did that, and we said, let's start it off with something that sort of maintains the previous forecast and looks at current models, because there's always this concern for, flip-flopping and that could happen. So that's where we started. And so if we look at, again, the official day 4 through 7 policy, we tested it for several months in different portions of the region to get different flavors of how is this blend going to work in different sections of the region. How does it work in the higher elevations? What does it look like next to the Great Lakes, in the general, more flatter area of the plains? And we were able to enact this idea after that test in late 2011, and we just didn't leave the blends as is. We looked at ways to improve them. In fact, even from the during the testing phase, we adjusted the blends quite a bit. In the end, here where we stand, we developed a super blend and knocked down the previous weight down to 10% because of verification. And then, as we are utilizing right now in Central Region, we're utilizing the national blend, and a lot of all this work that has happened in Central Region over the past decade helped lead into the national blend of models. We did research on, utilizing these blends not only improved consistency, it reduced workload, and it created a more accurate forecast over the long haul. So that was the extended, but we wanted to kind of shift gears and look more back at the short-term portion of the forecast, because again, here was another section of the forecast. Everybody was doing something different, so consistency was all over the place, and some people would put more attention to it, some wouldn't. And so we, as the grid methodology team, again, shifted our focus the first 24 hours and created these, just like we did for day 4 through 7, a test bed. Again, what does it look like in the Great Lakes? In this case, we went more to the southeastern portion of the region, and then also in the mountains. And one of the big parts of the idea with a short-term forecast is that the trust begins at the beginning of the forecast. If what somebody looks out the window and doesn't match what you have in your forecast, that's going to look kind of rough for having trust in any of the remaining part of the forecast. So we came up with this concept to have 3 hourly updates, improving temporal resolution for pop and weather, which at the time some had 12-hour long, just the pops, and that just didn't provide any of that higher resolution detail that is needed for partners and other users to look at for the forecast. And similarly, like for day 4 through 7, where we supplied help with like the smartness and then a procedure to populate the blends. We also, for the short term, provided a whole list of recommended smart tools, installed some of them, and also created another model blend named ConShort. Another area that was difficult for us to deal with consistency-wise was QPF. And so back in 2015, one of the things we started to do was work with WPC in terms of having a consistent QPF forecast across the region for days 1 through 3, and also being look basically pretty similar to WPC at the same time. Unfortunately, while it was successful, some of the deadlines that WPC had with those that we had in region really didn't work out, especially for Eastern time zone offices. So you kind of have these workflow differences that were tough to overcome. And then there's also some issues with how does that blend develop and all that. So we just kind of, after this experiment, we put it on hold with the idea of utilizing WPC, and revived it here back in late 2019. So I kind of want to take a moment to break away a little bit from all these things that the grid methodology team was doing and talk a little bit about the roadmap, because again, we had all these various projects day 4 through 7, ESTF, the WPC forecast with QPF, and getting one forecast. But, we're doing our thing. Meanwhile, there was another team that had just somewhat spun up, was the Central Region IDSS team. They had released the first version of the IDSS toolkit. And one of the things we wanted to do, this actually bore out of some discussions at an AMS conference, was like, hey, why don't we take the things that the CRG Matter is doing and the IDSS team and connect them? And this is what bore out of that, was this cool weather radiation roadmap. And at the same time, we saw, hey, there's a great avenue here to provide more detail of what's going on with some of the national NWS Evolve goals. And so that's sort of how this roadmap all kind of came together. And I participated on this team in the first roadmap. It was really impressive to just see all these various goals. I know it was a very tech heavy roadmap, but it's just really neat to see it all come together. All right, so up to this point with, again, the grid methodology team activities, we left a gap. You kind of saw we had the first 24 to 36 hours in the ESTF. We had days 4 through 7, but there was a definite hole. Another thing we never addressed, while we did recommend in the ESTF a potential avenue for populating things like QPF for snow amount, ice accumulation, and weather, we didn't have a consistent standard there either. And so what we decided to do here was see if there's a way that we can actually streamline the forecast process, see if we can provide a common tool base, things like the Smart Tool Advisory Task Force was doing, and lump it all into one program, and also be able to utilize all these blends that have been developed up to this point. And so again, we package it all together in one consistent package here called Forecast Builder. At the same time, in the past, we were dealing with things with service backup, and we needed something that, you would have the same technology at every office to help perform that, and this would be another avenue to help with that. And for a lot of you out there that that we used to, for Forecast Builder, we used to utilize Super Blend, but now in June of last year, we switched that to the National Blend of Models. And this is, we, just like anything else that we had done previously, we did an experiment with this in 2017 and that, and we verified that, hey, did it improve consistency, improved accuracy, decreased workload, some of those top 3 goals that were in our charter for the team. So with this Forecast Builder program, we also supported it with this robust training plan. A lot of kudos out there to Dan Baumgart, if he's on the line, for supporting that. And we wanted to set this up to evolve again with improving science. And I think since, again, as it's listed, there are 200 plus related changes since October 2016, and a lot of those changes are now coming outside of Central Region, because a lot of offices outside Central Region have seen the benefits to Forecast Builder. It's installed across almost all the the CONUS NWS to this point, which is very impressive. And again, we're getting continuous feedback, and I think we're seeing some benefits of what other regions can bring to the table to help improve that. Another avenue that we wanted to improve on was digital aviation as a team. One of the problems going back for many years is the fact that you could have an NDFD, you could do a point and click on a forecast, but that point and click wouldn't be anywhere close to what a TAF would be. The purpose of digital aviation was to help kind of make those significantly more in sync. We had feedback coming into, I think it was like the 2015 time frame, or even 2016, that I think pilots and that were doing that. They were looking at point and click and saying, hey, this doesn't match anything with the TAF. Those winds are completely different. And so this is sort of how this kind of came together. I mean, there was some digital aviation going on prior to this period. A lot of this experimental stuff out of like, even Jackson, Kentucky, shown here. And over in Taunton, now Norton, Massachusetts, was doing a lot of work, and came over to Milwaukee. We decided, let's spread this around. And the hope is that this is to support future IDSS for aviation, have a grid-based visibility, grids, ceiling, have all that wind, pop, weather info, all great stuff to eventually, continue supporting IDSS. So that's sort of where we've been. And now the question marks is, okay, where are we heading in the future? Obviously, a lot of this is detailed within the roadmap. Revitalizing the ESTS. That's certainly one area, definitely, that we need to bring that back to the forefront. It's been a long time since we've kind of visited that, so that's in there. Definitely getting into the probabilistic science. There's a whole lot of probabilistic information out there now. Let's see how we can leverage that in an efficient manner to also support our IDSS. We developed, thanks to Jerry Wiedenfeld, his work on this model certainty tool to sort of, get into there a little bit of what does this probabilistic information look like. Getting more of that ensemble percentile information, or AFDs, looking at 25th, 75th as a potential option for color balls and all that for our graphics. And also in the same area with probabilistic is the MBM version 3.2 precipitation type, which is also, like I mentioned, a true probabilistic look at what does the precipitation type spread, or what is that precipitation type spread in the MBM. And the hope is to evaluate that via test beds, and whether or not that happens, we'll have to see. We have looked at a few cases here that happened here late here in the spring that we have to look even more at during the summer. So let me talk a little bit about the second roadmap. So, the first run that we released was, I think, very, very tool heavy, whether it was related to IDSS Toolkit or SteerGMAT, the forecast builder. We had a lot of training on that. This second roadmap, we switched focus. The SteerGMAT, IDSS, and culture teams, culture being a new one, to look at this more in terms of more of a people side, but we still maintained some core component there to evolve in, science and technology to continue to evolve services. And with that, I think that's all I have, and I will open this up to questions.